Chapter 31. The author of Gavriliada. As Madame Gritsitseva was leaving the inhospitable halls of the bureaucracy, employees of the lowest ranks were already flocking to the house of the people. Messengers, young women going in and out, shift telephone operators, young assistant accountants, and armored teenagers. Among them moved Nikifor Lyapis, a young man with a sheep-like hairstyle and an intrepid gaze. The ignorant, the stubborn, and first-time visitors entered the house of the people through the main entrance. Nikifor Lyapis slipped into the building through the infirmary. He was an insider at the House of the People and knew the shortest routes to the oases, where the bright springs of honorariums gushed beneath the broad-leaved shade of departmental journals. First, Nikifor Lyapis went to the cafeteria. The nickel-plated cash register rang and spat out 3 receipts. Nikifor ate varenets, a type of baked milk, tearing open the paper-sealed cup, and a cream pastry that looked like a flower bed. He washed it all down with tea. Then Lyapis leisurely began to survey his holdings. His first visit was to the editorial office of the monthly hunting magazine, Geresim and Mumu. Comrade Napernikov wasn't in yet, so Nikifor Lyapis moved on to the Hygroscopic Herald, a weekly mouthpiece through which pharmacy workers communicated with the outside world. "Good morning," Nikifor said. "I've written some wonderful poems." "About what?" asked the head of the literary page. "On what topic? You know, Trubetskoy, that were a magazine." The head wiggled his fingers to more subtly define the essence of the Hygroscopic Herald. Trubetskoy Lyapis looked down at his white burlap trousers, leaned back, and said melodiously, "The Ballad of Gangrene." "That's interesting," the hygroscopic person remarked. "It's high time we promoted the ideas of prevention in a popular form." Lyapis immediately began to declaim. Gavrila suffered from gangrene. Gavrila was laid low by gangrene. Further on in the same dashing iambic tetrameter, it told of Gavrila, who, in his ignorance, didn't go to the pharmacy in time and died because he didn't smear his wound with iodine. "You're making progress, Trubetskoy," the editor approved, "but we'd like even more, you understand." He wiggled his fingers, but he took the terrible ballad, promising to pay on Tuesday. In the magazine Morse Code Daily, Lyapis was greeted hospitably. "It's good you've come, Trubetskoy. We just need some poems. Only everyday life, everyday life, everyday life. No lyricism. Do you hear, Trubetskoy? Something from the life of postal workers, and at the same time you understand." "Yesterday I was just pondering the life of postal workers, and this poem poured out of me. It's called The Last Letter. Here." Gavrila served as a postman. Gavrila delivered letters. The story of Gavrila was contained in 72 lines. At the end of the poem, the postman Gavrila, struck by a fascist bullet, still delivers the letter to its address. "Where did this happen?" Lyapis was asked. The question was legitimate. There are no fascists in the USSR, and there are no Gavrilas, members of the Communications Workers' Union, abroad. "What's the matter?" said Lyapis. "It takes place, of course, here, and the fascist is in disguise." "You know, Trubetskoy, you'd better write about a radio station for us." "Why don't you want the postman?" "Let it lie, we'll take it conditionally." Saddened, Nikifor Lyapis Trubetskoy went back to Geresim and Mumu. Napernikov was already sitting at his desk. On the wall hung a greatly enlarged portrait of Turgenev in pince-nez, swamp boots, and with a double-barreled shotgun at the ready. Next to Napernikov stood Lyapis's competitor, a poet from the suburbs. The old song about Gavrila began, but now with a hunting slant. The creation was titled The Poacher's Prayer. Gavrila waited in ambush for a hare. Gavrila shot the hare. "Very good," said the kind Napernikov. "You, Trubetskoy, have surpassed Antik himself in this poem. Only something needs to be corrected. First, throw out prayer, root and branch." "And the hare," said the competitor. "Why the hare?" Napernikov wondered. "Because it's not the season." "Do you hear, Trubetskoy? Change the hare too." In its transformed state, the poem was called A Lesson to a Poacher, and the hares were replaced by snipe. Then it turned out that snipe aren't shot in the summer either. In its final form, the poem read, Gavrila waited in ambush for a bird, Gavrila shot the bird, and so on. After lunch in the cafeteria, Lyapis set to work again. His white trousers flashed in the darkness of the corridors. He entered editorial offices and sold the many-faced Gavrila. In the cooperative flute, Gavrila was handed over under the title Aeolian Flute. Gavrila served behind the counter. Gavrila traded in flutes. Simpletons from the thick journal, The Forest as It Is, bought a small poem from Lyapis called At the Edge of the Forest. It began like this. Gavrila walked through the curly forest. Gavrila chopped bamboo. Last Gavrila for this day was engaged in baking bread. A place was found for him in the editorial office of the baker's worker. The poem had a long and sad title, On Bread, Product Quality, and a Loved One. The poem was dedicated to the mysterious Kina Klek. The beginning was still epic. Gavrila served as a baker. Gavrila baked a bun. The dedication, after a delicate struggle, was thrown out. Saddest thing was that Lyapis wasn't given money anywhere. Some promised to give it on Tuesday, others on Thursday or Friday, and still others in 2 weeks. He had to go and borrow money from the camp of enemies, to where Lyapis was never published. Lyapis descended from the 5th floor to the 2nd and entered the secretariat of the machine tool. To his misfortune, he immediately ran into the worker Persitsky. "Ah!" exclaimed Persitsky, "Lyapsis." "Listen," said Nikifor Lyapis, lowering his voice, "give me 3 rubles. Gerasim and Mumu owes me a pile of money. I'll give you 50 kopecks. Wait, I'll be right back." And Persitsky returned, bringing with him a dozen employees of the machine tool. A general conversation ensued. "Well, how's business?" Persitsky asked. "I've written some wonderful poems. About Gavrila, something peasant-like. Gavrila plowed early in the morning. Gavrila adored his plow." "What Gavrila? It's just hack work," Lyapis defended himself. "I wrote about the Caucasus." "Have you been to the Caucasus?" "I'll go in 2 weeks." "Aren't you afraid, Lyapsis? There are jackals there." "That scares me a lot. They're not poisonous in the Caucasus." After this answer, everyone became wary. "Tell me, Lyapsis," Persitsky asked, "what are jackals like in your opinion?" "I know, leave me alone." "Well, tell us if you know." "Well, they're like in the shape of a snake." Yes, you're right, as always. In your opinion, a wild goat's saddle is served at the table along with the stirrups." "I never said that," Trubetskoy shouted. "You didn't say it, you wrote it. Napernikov told me that you tried to foist such doggerel on him in Gerasim and Mumu, supposedly from the Life of Hunters. Tell me honestly, Lyapsis, why do you write about what you've never seen in your life and about which you have not the slightest idea? Why in your poem Canton is a peignoir a ball gown? Why?" "You're a Philistine," Lyapis said boastfully. "Why in the poem Races for the Budyani Prize does your jockey tighten a suppan on the horse and then sit on the oblachok? Have you ever seen a suppan?" "I have." "Well, tell us, what is it like?" "Leave me alone, you're a psycho." "And have you seen an oblachok? Have you been to the races?" "It's not necessary to be everywhere," Lyapis shouted. "Pushkin wrote Turkish poems and never was in Turkey." "Oh yes, Erzurum is located in the Tula province." Lyapis didn't understand the sarcasm. He continued hotly. "Pushkin wrote from materials. He read the history of the Pugachev rebellion, and then he wrote, and Antik told me everything about the races." After this virtuoso defense, Persitsky dragged the resisting Lyapis into the next room. The spectators followed them. There, on the wall, hung a large newspaper clipping, bordered in mourning. "Did you write this essay in the Captain's Bridge?" "I wrote it." "This seems to be your first experience in prose. Congratulations." The waves rolled over the pier and fell down with a swift jack. "Well, you've done a favor to the Captain's Bridge. The bridge won't forget you for a long time, Lyapis." "What's the matter?" "The matter is that, do you know what a jack is?" "Well, of course I know, leave me alone." "How do you imagine a jack? Describe it in your own words." "It's like it falls in a word." "A jack falls, note that everyone. A jack falls swiftly. Wait, Lyapsis, I'll bring you 50 kopecks now, don't let him go." But even this time the 50 kopecks weren't given. Persitsky dragged the 21st volume of Brockhaus from Domitius to Evrenov from the reference bureau. Between Domitius, a fortress in the Grand Duchy of Mecklenburg-Schwerin, and Dommel, a river in Belgium and the Netherlands, the desired word was found. Listen, Jack German, Domkraft is one of the machines for lifting significant weights. An ordinary simple J, used for lifting carriages, etc., consists of a movable tooth strip, which is gripped by a gear rotated by a handle, and so on and so on. John Dixon in 1879 installed the obelisk known as the Cleopatra's Needle, with the help of 4 workers operating 4 hydraulic J, and this device, in your opinion, has the ability to fall swiftly. So the assiduous Brockhaus and Ephron have been deceiving humanity for 50 years. Why do you churn out hack work instead of learning? Answer. I need monies. But you never have any. You're always prowling around for 50 kopecks. I bought a lot of furniture and went over budget. And how much furniture did you buy? You're paid for your hack work as much as it's worth, a penny. A good penny. I bought such a chair at auction. In the shape of a snake. No, from a palace, but misfortune befell me. Yesterday I returned home at night. From Kina Klek, the audience shouted in unison. Kina? I haven't lived with Kina for a long time. I was returning from a Mayakovsky debate. I arrive. The window is open. Neither Kuntov nor Ibrahim is home, and I immediately felt that something had happened. Ayuyui, said Persitsky, covering his face with his hands. I feel, comrades, that Lyapsis has had his best masterpiece stolen. Gavrila served as a janitor. Gavrila hired himself out as a janitor. Let me finish. Amazing hooliganism. Some scoundrels broke into my room and ripped open all the upholstery of the chair. Maybe someone will lend me 5 rubles for repairs. Repairs compose a new Gavrila. I can even tell you the beginning. Wait. Now, here, Gavrila bought a chair at the market. Gavrila had a bad chair. Write it down quickly. This can be sold profitably to the voice of the chest of drawers. A Trubetskoy. By the way, Lyapsis, why are you Trubetskoy? Nikifor Trubetskoy. Why don't you take an even better pseudonym? For example, Dolgoruki, Nikifor Dolgoruki, or Nikifor Valois. Even better, Citizen Nikifor Sumarakov Elston. If you have a good feeding trough, immediately 3 poems in Germamu, then your way out of the situation is brilliant. One delirium is signed Sumarakov, another pulp is Elston, and the third is Yusupov. You hack, hold him, comrades. I'll tell him a wonderful story. You Lyapsis, listen. It's useful in your profession. Employees strolled along the corridor, eating sandwiches as big as bass shoes. It was a breakfast break. Armored teenagers walked in pairs. Avdidiev ran from room to room, gathering friends of the automobile for an emergency meeting. But almost all the friends of the automobile were sitting in the secretariat and listening to Persitsky, who was telling a story he had heard in the Society of Artists. Here is that story. A tale of unhappy love. In Leningrad, on Vasilyevsky Island, on the second line, lived a poor girl with big blue eyes. Her name was Clodilda. The girl loved to read Schiller in the original, to dream while sitting on the parapet of the Neva embankment, and to eat an undercooked steak for lunch. But the girl was poor. There was a lot of Schiller, but there was no meat at all. Therefore, and also because the nights were white, Clodilda fell in love. The man who struck her with his beauty was a sculptor. His workshop was located near New Holland. Sitting on the windowsill, the young people looked into the black canal and kissed. Stars floated in the canal, or maybe gondolas. At least, it seemed so to Clodilda. Look, Vasya, the girl said. It's Venice. A green dawn shines behind the black marble castle. Vasya didn't remove his hand from the girl's shoulder. The green sky turned pink, then yellow, and the lovers still didn't leave the windowsill. Tell me, Vasya, Clodilda said, is art eternal? Eternal, Vasya replied. Man dies, the climate changes, new planets appear, dynasties perish, but art is unshakable. It is eternal. Yes, said the girl, Michelangelo. Yes, Vasya repeated, inhaling the scent of her hair, Praxiteles. Canova. Benvenuto Cellini. And again the stars wandered across the sky, sank into the water of the canal, and shone tubercularly towards morning. The lovers didn't leave the windowsill. There was very little meat, but their hearts were warmed by the names of geniuses. During the day, the sculptor worked. He sculpted busts, but his labors were covered in great mystery. During work hours, Clodilda didn't enter the workshop. In vain she begged. Vasya, let me see how you create. But he was adamant, pointing to a bust covered with a wet cloth, he told her. It's not time yet, Clodilda, it's not time yet. Happiness, fame, and money await us in the front room. Let them wait. The stars floated. One day, the happy girl was given a complimentary ticket to the cinema. A film called When the Heart Must Fall Silent was playing. Clodilda sat in the first row, right in front of the screen. Brought up on Schiller and amateur sausage, the girl was unusually excited by everything she saw. Sculptor Hans sculpted busts. Fame came to him in great strides. His wife was beautiful, but they quarreled. In anger, the beautiful woman smashed a bust with a hammer, the great creation of sculptor Hans on which he had worked for 3 years. Fame and wealth perished under the blow of the hammer. Hans's grief was inconsolable. He hanged himself, but the repentant wife pulled him out of the noose in time. Then she quickly threw off her clothes. Sculpt me, she exclaimed. There is no body in the world more beautiful than mine. Oh, Hans replied, how blind I was. And he, seized with inspiration, sculpted a statue of his wife, and it was such a statue that the world trembled with joy. Hans and his beautiful wife became famous and were happy until their graves. Clodilda walked to Vasya's workshop. Everything was mixed up in her soul, Schiller and Hans, stars and marble, velvet and rags. Vasya, she called out. He was in the workshop. He was sculpting his wondrous bust, a man with a long mustache and in a Tolstavka, a type of peasant shirt worn by followers of Tolstoy. He was sculpting it from a photographic card. And all our life is a struggle, the sculptor sang, giving the sculpture the final polish. And at that very second, the bust shattered into pieces from a terrible blow with a hammer. Clodilda had done her job. Extending her hand, stained with plaster, to Vasya, she said proudly, "Clean my nails." And she left. Strange sounds reached her ears. She understood what was happening. The great sculptor was crying over the broken creation. Next morning, Clodilda came to continue her work, to take the shaken Vasya out of the noose, to throw off her clothes before him, and to say, "Sculpt me, there is no body in the world more beautiful than mine." She entered and saw. Vasya wasn't hanging in the noose. He was sitting on a high stool with his back to the entering Clodilda and doing something. But the girl wasn't embarrassed. She threw off all her clothes, covered herself with goosebumps from the cold, and cried out, chattering her teeth, "Sculpt me, Vasya, there is no body in the world more beautiful than mine." Vasya turned around. The words of the song froze on his lips. And then Clodilda saw what he was doing. He was sculpting a wondrous bust, a man with a long mustache and in a Tolstavka. The photographic card stood on the table. Vasya was giving the sculpture the final polish. "What are you doing?" Clodalda asked. "I'm sculpting a bust of the head of the cooperative smelting plant, number 28. "But I broke it yesterday," Clodalda stammered. "Why didn't you hang yourself? After all, you said that art is eternal. I destroyed your eternal art. Why are you alive, man?" "Eternal it is, eternal," Vasya replied, "but the order has to be delivered. What do you think?" Vasya was a normal hack middleman. And Clodalda read too much Schiller. "So Lyapsis, don't scare Kinochka Klek with your skill. She's a tender woman. She believes in your talent. It seems no one else believes in it. But if you keep running around the hygroscopic heralds for another month, then Kina Klek will turn away from you too. By the way, I won't give you 50 kopecks. Leave Lyapsis."